So we're doing a 6-part series this time, and it's all around leadership and coaching. And I'm so super lucky to have the amazing Dr. Susie Mitchell. Dr. Susie Mitchell, can you give us a little bit of introduction of who you are to any of our listeners out there that wants to know about you?
Oh, Louise, it's a delight to be on your podcast. Oh, I hate talking about myself. I'm here to help others, But no, I've been running my own business for about nearly 25 years now. I'm a psychologist. I work usually in the business arena, but as we all know, when you work with people in business, companies, organizations, life, things show up. So, I love helping people. I'm an executive coach, and I've got a genre of clients, all clients internationally, from luxury retail to hotels to tech companies to wealth management. I just love people. I'm an ex-nurse from years ago, and I really, really believe my purpose on this planet is to help people. So that's been my journey, Louise, and here we are today.
Thank you, Susie. Now, Susie is very humble. So please check her out, and I'll give her social media channels at the end, but she is a wonderful coach that I've gotten to know through the amazing LinkedIn, and she works with Tony Robbins as well. She's a really amazing coach, and she's a lot of fantastic things there to say about coaching. And yes, you can see that in her values are helping people in the way she gives her time to people and is so supportive. Thank you for joining me. So we're going to delve into coaching and leadership coaching in particular. And this is something very close to my heart, all around purpose and alignment. And for me, the journey came from, I suppose, my why needed to be bigger than my try. And this was a big learning curve for me, because I think for a long time, I always liked helping people, and I didn't know what that entailed. And I fell into retail, and it grew a pair of legs where I was exposed to coaching, and it grew from there. My fascination with coaching is bringing it into retail and bringing it into that space, because it doesn't really exist in the culture of retail as much as what I'd like to see. I think it's in a lot of other industries, but we're not really seeing a lot of it in that industry. Susie, in your experience, I suppose, how does a leader support their team as a collective when coaching them on kind of learned behaviours? Because it can be quite tricky at times.
It definitely can be, Louise, definitely. I think the reality is that more and more is being demanded, and change needs embracing by the workforce. And I would say, does the workforce have the confidence, the experience, and the commitment to adapt, undoing the learned behaviors, that are no longer relevant within the culture of the business? And I definitely think there's two qualities that I think are important: is ownership and responsibility. But what makes people choose to take this? And I think leaders need to engage the workforce so they decide to make the choices they need to. So choices. And I think these days there is more awareness of personal needs, searching for that meaning and that sense of purpose, like you mentioned earlier. I think when we're living in such a fast-moving world now, with everything constantly changing, I think we need to adapt with the flow of this. And how I do it with working with leaders is I coach leaders through programs of a cultural cycle and the ingredients of success that enable them to do this. As you've said, I work with the likes of Tony Robbins, and I've done Brené Brown and Robin Sharma. I've worked with them, and I think I've collected what I believe are the best questions that actually shift people's learned behaviors. And I've used them time and time again with staggering results that I'm proud to see people stepping up even more into their desired change and to impact the people within their business. So that's what I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I suppose going in there as a manager, and we've all gone into, I suppose, organizations where you can feel that culture isn't right. You can feel that there's something it doesn't feel right. There's an ickiness in the air. There's something heavy in the air, and you're trying to figure out how to unravel that. What questions can you give examples, or what would you kind of we talked about talking to the individuals. What would you say would be kind of questions that would really maybe unravel that with the team, that people can maybe use to try and figure out what it is that's going on there?
Yeah, 3 questions come to mind that I think that I use anyway, So and obviously people can listen to this afterwards and capture these questions down and everything. And I think one of them would be, how would I need to look at this differently to get a positive result? So it's helping the brain shift and looking at differently. And the second question I would say, what could I do differently today to make me feel better? You know, I think if we use the word differently a few times, the brain starts to open the cogwheels to think differently, to act differently. And then the last question I would recommend is definitely, how can I take responsibility for this change and manage it effectively and elegantly? Though, I mean, in 25 years, I've collected so many questions that I've used with all my clients. And obviously I've been on trainings. And I think those three really immediately get the shift, get our brain to look at it, and then it can start changing behavior.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, I think questions are amazing. They really unravel it. And I think a lot of people, a lot of maybe leaders or managers that I've come across are very quick to give advice or to jump in. And I think it's having that patience and that quietness to be able to ask those questions, but to give room for people to be able to answer them in the right way.
I think there's two extras to add in there. I think what's important is, I've learned over the years that questions are the answers. Questions are
really powerful. That's really powerful. Questions are the answers. I love that flip.
Yes. And the person who is starting to use different questions to obviously change behavior or unlearn behavior is, I think there's a willingness. There has to be a willingness to want to change, to want to adapt. So the word that I use a lot these days is willingness.
Willingness, yeah. Well, yeah, willingness is, again, it's that it feels like when I hear the word willingness, it feels like it's accountability. It feels like it's not a forced, it's very much an act of wanting to.
Yes, it is. I believe it is. Yeah, definitely.
What do you feel? I suppose we have leaders that are in positions that mightn't display some of these qualities to maybe do this. What do you feel is the kind of key ingredient? What do you think they need to have? We talked about willingness, accountability, to have these kind of coaching conversations. And we know some managers might have it and some mightn't. What do you think is important for them to have these conversations? Because not everyone has had that trainer, and not everyone knows how to do that, Susie. I think there's some leaders in positions that maybe were moved into that role really quickly, or maybe they were moved up and they're not too sure how to manage those conversations. What do you feel they need to have those conversations, quality wise or skills wise?
I think, again, the leader's got to keep learning, keep on that life journey of, how can I become better? I talk about the 2 millimeter shift with leaders, taking that self-ownership, taking that self-responsibility. Everybody gets challenges in business and in life. Business mirrors life, really. So it's finding out, right, how do I take my self-responsibility to progress me so that I can help others in the workplace or in my personal life? I think it works across the board. So I would say they need to take that self-responsibility, and that to me is a quality. Because so many people don't want to look in the mirror. So many people don't want to show up to be the best they can be. They're comfortable. They're steady eddies, whatever it is. But I think if you choose to be a learner, a student of life, I look at it every day. How can I be the best I can be to help deliver to my clients? And I think the biggest would be self-responsibility. I would say there, definitely, Louise. Definitely.
Okay. Yeah, really, really good. Yeah. And I'm just, all these things are popping into my head as you're saying that, self-awareness. And I can actually picture people through work or personal who have had that level. It's really, really interesting. A coaching question I've used a few times is, who do you admire?
Yes.
And what qualities or behaviors or values do they display? Yeah, and really get the conversation going that way. So it's really interesting to see it from a perspective of that. What do you find, I suppose, looking at the roles and finding your purpose, how does that play in a person's overall fulfillment of life? Because I know from having, I suppose, performance conversations, and I would always bring it back to the individual. The business would always have a document, and I'd always go outside of that, because I know when you're dealing with people, we can talk about key performance indicators and all of this, but that's not really going to get them motivated to go on the sales floor and increase these KPIs. But some people don't know what their why is, Susie. A lot of people don't know what their why is. And I know it took me a really long time to know what my why is. What do you think, from your experience, I suppose, as a coach, finding that purpose, how does that play into people's fulfillment, do you think, in life?
I totally agree with you. Many of the people I work with find this a challenge. They really, really do.
Yeah.
You know, nobody can identify their purpose. And what I've again learned over the years is I do some very specific exercises to deep dive and bring out what's in their heart and what's in their emotion. We shared off camera, as we did a minute ago, about, you know, helping somebody to read their own energy, helping somebody to let go energetically, you know, and it's everybody, and not everybody, but many people have this challenge. I remember when I was a nurse, like I said, many moons ago, and I absolutely loved caring and helping people then. So whatever I did when I moved into the business world had to revolve around that. I then realized, you know, that was my purpose, to find paths to help people on this. We all have strengths and behaviors that are innate within us, all within. And it's just growing these if they feel right for that person. And you being a coach, me being a coach, you know, we can work this out one-on-one. We can do it as a group collective, but it is a challenge. It's a big challenge out there.
Yeah. It's quite interesting. And anytime I looked for my purpose or my why, I had to go backwards. I had to really work a lot on reflecting and journaling and seeing, you know, what got me really excited, even going back to my childhood. What did I like doing? What gave me energy? And nearly finding those little patterns or those little snippets, because we leave trails, we leave breadcrumbs along the way. And it's finding those breadcrumbs. So yeah, it's really interesting, I think. And I think a lot of people through COVID, because we had to stand still, they had a lot of that time to reflect. And that's really where my purpose journey really gained wheels and traction, because I had to stop. And that's where that came into. So I just wanted to get your view on that. So it's really interesting to hear. And we shared helping is definitely a value. I think most coaches and helpers, I think, have that inside them, that giving and that helping and wanting to help others.
They do. I also like your word reflection. You know, I do a technique called the self-reflective mirror, and it's exactly what you said. We've got to sometimes go back to go forward, find out, you know, from the past what worked, what didn't work. You know, is it a behavior? Is it a feeling? Is it emotion? There's so many things, but it's very true. The word reflection is part of it as well.
Yeah. What does it being aligned mean to you? Because alignment is very much a buzzword. It's been a buzzword, I think, recently, and we're talking about it a lot. And I'm always interested to hear, what does aligned mean to you? If you could sum it up or say to somebody, what does it mean?
Well, let me tell you what it means to me. I think it's truly living our true values. That's what I believe it is. You know, when behaviors, thoughts, others go against their values, that is when so many unpleasant things happen to them. You know, there could be conflict, there could be negative situations. Even when people have healthy debates, I call them, you know, when people have different opinions, it's so important to understand somebody else's point of view. We may not agree with the certain parts of the discussions, you know, but see it as a gift when you're having that healthy debate with other people if they go against your values and things, because we need to understand others. But I would say absolutely, you know, aligned means living to the values. Most definitely. Yeah,
I love that. When I looked back on my journey and seen helping and kind of figured out helping, how does that, you know, because it's very much a vague. And I remember doing a values assessment matrix, and I was coming back with all these words, and again, it was like a puzzle almost, figuring it out. And I think what you touched on there, that's something that's very important to me. And when I look back on my journey, I was serving customers, I was serving my staff, I was helping. helping build, so it all did come back to serving and helping people. I was in a service industry, so it fed into that. So yeah, it's just really interesting to hear that, Susie, values, because we do have them. And I think sometimes people, when they hear the word values, they kind of think it's very much a far away thing, it's very abstract. But I think sometimes we bring it back to what we do in a day-to-day life and what those actions are. It's a simplified version of what it is that we're really talking about today. Yeah, definitely. Yours is helping, Susie. So I'm gonna put this back to you. Your value is helping. How does it show up in your daily life? How does yours show up? Because I love asking, I love putting a little story together of what that looks like.
I think in my daily life, one of the absolute my values are that I have daily thoughts about is gratitude. Gratitude, gratitude of people, gratitude of experiences, even the challenging ones, Louise. As I believe, I may need to hear that lesson over and over again until I get it. I'm every day I say I write a gratitude journal every few days, what I'm grateful, but I literally, because I choose to be a student of life, I keep saying to myself, how can I be an even better person, with my gifts to serve others? So I would say, the daily thoughts I have about gratitude, that's what keeps me to my North Star and keeps me to my true values.
Definitely. I love that. It's beautiful. I love that. I think gratitude it's very underestimated, but it's such a powerful tool. It is so powerful. It's amazing what it does. And it's writing that down. I think it really brings it to life.
But also, I don't know whether you know this, and you may know this, but gratitude and fear cannot live in the mind at the same time. You can't have gratitude thoughts and fear thoughts.
Oh, I love that, Susie.
One or the other. It's really interesting. So if you fill your heart, your soul, your mind with gratitude, it mitigates, it really brings down the not so good side of things.
I love that, Susie. Love that. I'm gonna write that down. I love that. If you can't see right now, anybody, but if anyone was in my office, right behind my laptop, I have these words that mean something to me. When something, when that means something to me, and when I put it up, there could be times throughout the day where I'll look up and I'll go, yeah, you know what? Yeah.
I'm going into your unconscious mind. Fabulous.
Exactly. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, it really works for me. A visual, and definitely it evokes that emotion, because I can link it back to, and I'll link this back to the conversation we had, and that I'll get that feeling again. It works. It's amazing. Yeah. Have you ever coached someone that they felt they were aligned, and then to realize, Susie, that they were like, no, I'm no longer aligned to this. It's no longer serving me. Do you believe it can change, or have you ever experienced that change?
First of all, I definitely do believe people can switch and pivot and change. They've got to have that word willingness that I mentioned earlier. And I actually coached a CEO 3 years ago who built a phenomenal business in one direction, and then he had lost the passion and the drive for that business. And a few sessions later, he absolutely pivoted and is truly loving what he's building now. And he's going to take it to an 8 figures exit. Absolutely phenomenal. But he realized he'd lost his mojo, lost his purpose, still has a sort of handed the reins of that business over. And now he's really gone deeper. He's a different season of life. He's a little bit older, more wisdom, because I truly believe we go through seasons of our life and get different learnings. And he's definitely pivoted, and he's loving what he does with a mega passion. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Was that a journey that took a while? Was there a lot of self-reflection, Susie? How did he get to that point of repivoting? Was it him realizing it himself? Was it the coaching? Was it reflecting? What came about that? Or was it just that he wasn't getting the output that he was putting in? How did that realization occur?
Great question, Louise. I've been working with him and his leadership team, for about 3 years. And obviously we progressed the business, because I work through the business, through the people. That's my role when I go into companies. And I've noticed for about 3 or 4 months, he was off kilter. So when I had my one-to-ones with him, my private coaching with him, we just did some deep dives, and I found out, he'd lost that desire. He'd lost the energy to actually focus on the business. And I found out what it was. And he felt I've achieved everything I wanted to achieve, because entrepreneurs or CEOs or visionary people, they pivot more often than not. That's a pattern that I see with CEOs and entrepreneurs, those that have their own businesses, because they so excited about building something, and then when they've built a platform that's phenomenal, they lose the energy to do it, so they want to go and build again. And yet some of them don't have the heart to do it, because here we go again, attitude. So it took about 3 coaching sessions with him when we identified. I had to call him out on it one day, and I said, you're not living your truth. And he went, how did you know? And I said, listen, I'm not going to mention his name, but I've been working with you a long time, I know. And it took about 3 coaching sessions, and then the light bulbs went off, and he said, I've just got to let go of that, hand the reins over and move on to the next. And, it's just having that realization, that awareness.
Yeah, that's really powerful. And it's great to have that. I think, you mentioned calling him out on that. And I think sometimes as coaches, and I know myself when I started coaching, I was actually afraid to call my coaches out on stuff. And it did take a while, because you're trying to, it's there, and you're asking those questions, and you're unraveling, and then you're going, okay, it's going to happen, and then it doesn't happen. So I think I love that approach, Susie, of we are the mirror, I think, to our coaches. We mirror, and I think it's very important as well that when we see that we do call it out, because it helps them on that journey. Yeah,
I do believe coaches are there to call them out. Once you've built your trust rapport and you have that relationship, you can, because what's the point of being their coach if we can't have honesty again?
Yeah, definitely. From your perspective as a coach, what do you believe is the biggest blocker for people finding their purpose or their why? What do you think that blocker is?
Great question again. And I think one of the reasons is that they don't give it the time and the energy and the focus to do that deep dive. I think a lot of people are swimming along on the surface in that swimming lane, and they just don't take that time. That's what I see as a pattern with all the people I've worked with, so we definitely work out to give it time. And I think once people give their attention to exactly what they want, because asked by the right coach, trained to do this, obviously, then incredible outcomes will happen, definitely. Because most people, again, think it's through intellectually from their head, yet when they drop from their head to their heart and come from within, and we ask those heartfelt questions deeper, then their true self comes through. I think many people do not want to be perceived by others with the true, real belief systems. People wear a mask, this. And I think perceptions can really prevent people from living their truth. So again, when we open it up and bring those real beliefs, real truths forward, I think people then, it's lovely, the mask is dropped.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I can definitely relate that sometimes we look to find our why with that rational part of our brain. We look to rationalize that why and that purpose, and that's not where that comes from. That comes from a different place, and it comes from that emotional part of us. And I think definitely that's where there's a different part of our brain that's working. And I think from seeing some clients that sometimes there's an expectation of, you're doing medicine or you're doing law and we have that expectation that we feel others have of us, and that can also possibly be a blocker that we have in our way. Yeah.
Yes, agreed. Yeah.
What in your life have you come across as your biggest obstacle, and what you need to draw on to overcome this? And I love asking you these personal questions. You're probably going to literally stop asking me. But I just think it's interesting because you're a coach, Susie, and you're fantastic at what you do. So your self-awareness and self-understanding is quite high, I can imagine. So when I'm asking these questions, I know they won't be bothered to you. So that's partly why.
I don't mind at all, because if it can help one person, that's yours and my belief, I'm sure. If it can help one person to live their true values, etc., then I think it's important. I think it's when I chose to move from nursing to the business world. That was probably my biggest obstacle. This is years ago, and I was 18 and decided to be a nurse, and I chose that as a profession. probably the age of my life. There wasn't a lot of choices then as a woman. And I still wanted to impact and make a difference to more people's lives. And I discovered I had a real thirst for learning about the mind and neurology and how it works. Hence, I did, my PhD in neurology and psychology, but I had to be my own guinea pig. I had to take that leap of faith to jump careers. My father thought I was crazy. How can you give up a nursing profession? And I said, no, it felt to me like I had to do it. I was on this mission. It was like an epiphany. And I just knew that I had to take that leap of faith, and I knew I had to do it. And I've never looked back, because I'm still helping people within this arena. And I just love learning. I love learning. Love it. Love it. Love it.
Yeah, that's fantastic. For anyone that's in that phase, because a lot of people are moving into what they were doing, into a new career, what would you say is the biggest support tools or the biggest resources that they can really, I suppose, have around them as a solopreneur, as someone that's starting out, they've moved to maybe starting their own business? What would you say would be the advice you give them maybe on that journey starting out, Susie?
Well, I have to bring it back to what we both do for a living. When you're on your own as a solopreneur, is find a coach. I know when you start up a business, you don't have a lot of money, because you want to start your business to build money, and build values and build relationships. But I would say find a coach, because, I've been blessed over the years to have amazing people that we've mentioned already as a coach to me. But find somebody that relates to your energy, and find that coach that you can soundboard off. You may not need a coach to say, oh my gosh, how am I going to do it? Because you might be very clear, but you need somebody to support you, to hold you accountable, to be with you on the journey, to bounce ideas off. And that is a massive resource that I think it'll help so many people realize that. Whether you're in a big business, you're running your own business now, you and I believe in coaching. That's why we choose to do it as a profession.
Yeah, definitely. And to keep you in check and to have that support and accountability, I think it's so powerful, especially when you're on your own. Thank you so much. I've had so much knowledge out of this time together. And before we came on air, I honestly could sit and talk to Susie all day long, because she's one of those people. You're just one of those people I just want a cup of tea with and talk to for 2 or 3 hours. Where can people find you, Susie? So can we shout out your website, or where people can maybe get a hold of you if they want to reach out to you?
Yes, I'm on LinkedIn under Dr Susie Mitchell, and my website is susiemitchell.co.uk. So that's SUSIE and then my surname.co.uk. But please reach out to me. Louise is amazing at what she does, and she's put these incredible podcasts together. So she's always your first port of call. But if something resonated with what I've said, please reach out, and I will always reply to a DM. Always.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Susie. I appreciate you coming on, and thanks a million for your time, and look forward to talking to you again soon.
Definitely. Bye-bye, Louise.